It is Sunday morning, the 1st of July in 1984. Like every week, a man buys the newest edition of La Gazzetta dello Sport. This week is different, however, because he can't believe the front page. The streets in the seaside city are crowded as always. The sun's rays reflect on the water and brighten up the vibrant houses along the boulevard. The noises of motorcycles, scooters and cars. The smell of gasoline, smoke and street food. The views of the Vesuvius, the water and the stadium. It is unmistakable. This is Naples. However, this is not the only way the city presents itself. On one side there is the sun, the sea and the beauty. On the other there is discrimination, poverty and, most importantly, the underworld of the Mafia. During the 80s there was a very prominent divide between the north and the south of Italy. Particularly the people of Naples were stigmatized, being considered an impediment to Italy's modernization. Southerners were lazy, dirty criminals, according to the north. The slur terrone was very popular at the time. It was a derogatory term, meaning inelegant, backward or unskilled. This discrimination was caused by poverty and only led to more poverty in the southern regions. Unemployment rates were high, the Neapolitan industry was behind and the GDP was around 40% smaller than that of the north. Because the southern economies weren't growing, government funding was heavily criticized by the north and it decreased over the years. The only economy that was thriving consisted of unreported labor and organized crime. The Camorra ruled Naples. The different mafia clans fought each other in wars, the city acting as their battleground and the streets consumed by rains of gunfire. Business owners had to pay pizzo, protection money, to the mafia. If they weren't hit by a stray bullet on the streets, they would be killed if they refused to pay. Everyone knew about this, but no one said anything out of fear for their life. The city was caught in absolute silence. Omerta. On the 13th of May 1984, the last match of the 83-84 season was played, ending in a 2-1 loss to Torino. Società Sportiva Calcio Napoli finished 12th in the league, their worst finish since getting relegated in 1963. The state of the club was very similar to the state of the city. There was no hope. They needed a miracle. 2 years earlier, in 1982, Barcelona had signed the most promising player in the world for a record fee. He played well, however, amidst conflicts on and off the field, the man was forced to leave only 2 years later. As the greatest on earth, he could choose every club he wanted. But there was only one that needed him most. As May of 1984 came around, the rumors started filling the Spanish and Italian newspapers. Napoli was submitting bid after bid to FC Barcelona. Hysteria took over the city of Naples, and fans went on hunger strikes in order to pressure the Spanish club to accept the deal. The North questioned Napoli's ability to pay the gigantic sum they had promised. And despite it being rooted in discrimination, they weren't exactly wrong. The £6.9 million fee had to be loaned from the Banco di Napoli, and it had to be loaned quick. The paperwork was not yet finalized, but the transfer window was closing. The deal seemed to be off until Napoli president Corrado Ferlaino came up with a genius plan. He submitted an envelope with a blank contract to the league office in Milan, before flying off to Spain to get the real contract. With all the paperwork in order, he returned to Italy and swapped the fake contract for the real one, finalizing the greatest transfer in the history of the sport. And then, finally, on the 5th of July 1984, Diego Armando Maradona was presented as Napoli player in front of 75,000 roaring fans. Along with the transfer fee of £6.9 million, the fan attendance was also a record that stood for 25 years. Not bad for a small club like Napoli. He was completely overwhelmed by the Italian reception. Thus, his presentation consisted of him taking a microphone and, in broken Italian, saying, "Good evening, Neapolitans," before keeping a ball up exactly 7 times and kicking it into the sky. The miracle Naples needed was here, with, surprisingly, a bit of a slow start. Maradona's debut season resulted in an 8th place finish. He scored 17 goals, assisting 11. Diego was not satisfied with the performances of the team. He told President Ferlaino, "Buy 3 or 4 players and sell the ones the crowd whistle at." He threatened leaving the club if his wishes were not met. As he was already treated as a saint in the city, Ferlaino wouldn't dare to sell him. So Maradona got what he demanded. Apart from the fact that Napoli barely had the money to buy new players, very few players wanted to join the club anyway, because of the high crime rates and the prominence of the Mafia in the city. This was the case until Maradona came. In his own words, "The truth is, before my arrival, nobody wanted to go to Napoli." His transfer demands were successful. The club went from an 8th place finish to a 3rd place the following season. But it wasn't until 86-87 that Maradona became more than just a miracle. The only club outside of the North and Rome who had won a scudetto before was Cagliari. No other southerner had done it since the inception of the Serie A in 1930. It came down to the very last matchday. Napoli needed just a point against Fiorentina at home to secure the title. Earlier in the season they had lost 3-1 away from home. This time, a goal from Carnevale in the 29th minute put them 1-0 up, and despite Roberto Baggio equalizing in the 39th, Napoli got the draw they so desired. The final whistle blew, and according to Diego, this title win was incomparable to even his 1986 World Cup win. He wrote, "We built Napoli from the bottom. The scudetto belonged to the whole city, and I was the captain of the ship. I was the flag. They could mess with anyone, but not with me. It was that simple." During the celebrations, he said, "I consider myself a son of Naples." He immortalized himself with that sentence. Maradona was no longer just a savior, a wonder, or a lost hope. That day, Diego Armando Maradona became God. He played another 5 years for Napoli until 1992, winning a 2nd scudetto, a Coppa Italia, an UEFA Cup and a Supercoppa Italiana. He played 259 matches, scoring 115 goals and accumulating 86 assists. However, there was so much more to his transfer to Napoli than just his achievements. It is the reason he is still considered on par, if not above God himself in Naples today. The strength of the Neapolitan affection for him is so large that it is impossible to describe it in words. Diego became one of the most popular names for newborns in the city. El Pelusa could not walk down the street, not at all, never. If he went to buy a new pair of shoes, the shop windows would be smashed in and there would be 1,000 people surrounding him in about 5 minutes. There were constantly people waiting outside his house, hoping to catch a glimpse of him as he left for training or a match. There were so many, in fact, that he could not drive his car out of his garage. He had to start up the engine and, as the garage door opened, drive into the crowd, hoping they would step aside. As he drove off, he would be followed by people on scooters and had to race down the streets of Naples to lose them. Beyond this though, there is another layer of popularity he could have only gotten at Napoli. The transfer was something completely surreal, something that felt ridiculous and impossible. The club was so small, frowned upon and poor that signing the best player in the world by a mile was nearly a dream. He had the choice between every club in the world, and he chose Napoli. That is what means the most to the fans and the people of the city. They felt inferior to the rich people of the north and were massively disadvantaged. But when Maradona came, they felt blessed. They felt like the chosen ones who had been specifically picked by God, by Diego. Maradona put Napoli on the map, something they are still benefiting from. The things he said about himself in relation to the club might sound cocky, but they are true. Without Maradona, Napoli wouldn't be the club it is today. In fact, without Maradona, the South wouldn't be what it is today. The rich clubs of the North respected Maradona, and therefore started having more respect for the South as a whole. As the representative of the South, he showed the rich what the poor could do, and he forever changed the North-South dynamic for the better. To understand the absurdity of the transfer, it is helpful to compare it to the current situation. How would you feel if you read on the news that Udinese signed Mbappe, that Everton signed Yamal? How would you feel if Real Sociedad signed Michael Olise? Yes, that is how insane the transfer was, how impossible it felt. Imagine how that must have been for the people of poverty-struck Naples. Maradona to Napoli was the most important transfer ever. He brought Napoli respect, trophies and a legacy that the club still lives off of today. There is no player in the world that is worshipped as much as Maradona is in Naples. You can find him in every alleyway the city offers. He is omnipresent. He is God. He is worshipped because he gave the people something that no one else could have given them: hope. Hope in times of war and poverty is the most valuable thing there is, and the number 10 of Naples created it when it was needed most. Because of all he's done, his number has been retired by the club. El Pibe de Oro will forever be remembered by his true name. Maradona is Dios.